Good evening. We're going to call the Planning Commission meeting for May 17th to order. Let me get organized here real quickly. I'll go through housekeeping in a minute, but if we could first have Commissioner Custer lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would stand.
Prepare for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance.
Stop. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
For a
to
second.
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't hear what you said, so I'm just trying to speak.
I've done the same, so.
Yeah, exactly.
A little housekeeping before we get started with the regular agenda. Actually, let's do roll call. I'm out of order this evening, so let's go to roll call first. City Planner?
Good evening, Chair Rosales,
Yes, I'm here.
Vice Chair Morrissey.
Here.
Commissioner Goodkind indicated she would be absent tonight, and likewise, Commissioner Balma indicated she would be absent tonight. Commissioner Custer?
Here.
Commissioner Hayes?
Here.
And Commissioner Raines, I believe, indicated he is traveling. He will try and join us via Zoom, but he may not be here, so we'll see.
Great, thank you.
So for the record, you have 4 commissioners in the chambers, 1 possibly via Zoom, but the 4 in the chambers is enough to form a quorum, so you're good.
Great, thank you. Okay, to the housekeeping. So this meeting is going to be conducted in accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order 2920 related to COVID-19 virus. That order suspends several provisions of the Brown Act related to telephonic participation by the Planning Commission, staff members, and the public. Due to applicable public health orders, the City Council chambers are open at this time to the public with limited capacity. Members of the public are encouraged to listen or watch the meeting via Zoom, by computer, or by phone. The meeting can be watched on KOCT TV, KOCT Channel 19, AT&T Channel 99, or live streamed on KOCT's website, although there is a slight delay. To participate in person in the council chambers, these are the standards today. Members of the public who elect to attend in person are required to wear facial coverings in all city facilities except while providing testimony, and are required to maintain appropriate social distances. The public will be required to wait outside the council chambers if capacity is reached. If required to wait outside the chambers, those wishing to testify will be allowed to enter the chambers only to provide testimony and then return to outside the chambers after testifying. We ask that you voluntarily wait outside the chambers until the item you are interested in is announced in order to better provide seating for each agenda item. For the applicants for projects before the Planning Commission, you will be allowed in the chambers even if seating capacity has been reached. It is suggested, though, that only one representative for the applicant team be in the chambers while the other team members are participating via Zoom. As I indicated earlier, participation via Zoom is still available. And to find more information about how to do that, it's on the first page of the Planning Commission agenda. So moving forward on the agenda, communications on matters not on the agenda. City Planner, anything?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 speakers on communication matters not on the agenda, but before we go there, I wanted to announce that item 6 regarding the St. Malo item has been postponed to July 12th at the request of the applicant.
Great, thank you.
And so going to non-agenda items, we do have 2 speakers, and Scott Nightingale will call them.
The first speaker on non-agendized items is Barbara Gordon.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Barbara Gordon. I am here today to share some information as the city is expanding the number of marijuana businesses. I would like to recommend and encourage the Planning Commission to watch an important San Diego County's virtual news conference this Thursday from 10 to 11 titled Doctors Warn Cannabis Can Cause Serious Health Hazards. San Diego County Marijuana Initiative will introduce ISEC. This stands for the International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis. At this news conference, 4 of the medical doctors will discuss the current cannabis-related trends in emergency and other medical settings and make available reliable, peer-reviewed medical resources on the short and long-term consequences of cannabis use. ISEC, the International Academy on Science and Impact of Cannabis, is a medical organization of doctors who educate on marijuana, the basics of scientific and medical literature. This nonpartisan group and non-political group created to facilitate information decisions when considering cannabis policy and law. This news conference will be based on the review of the scientific evidence and conclude that public health efforts on high-potency cannabis are harmful. These growing negative impacts further strain the healthcare and addiction treatment resources to the extent that they will far outpass any taxation revenue. This evidence-based information provided at the news conference should be thought-provoking to all cities and should give everyone a pause before they would think about moving forward on marijuana policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Diane Nygard.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Diane Nygard representing Preserve Calavera. And I wanted to let you know that last month, Preserve Calavera and Buena Vista Audubon Society appealed your decision to approve the CarMax project. It's not something we did lightly. It's only the second time in 22 years we felt compelled to do that. But we really believed you weren't given all the information you needed to make an informed decision. And the result of that is, as Joan puts it, putting a conservation easement on a garbage dump. And so we really felt we had no recourse. But subsequent to that, we had a number of very productive meetings with staff and with CarMax, and we were able to work through a number of procedural changes to make sure that that won't happen again, and substantive changes, including restoration of the buffer and that all of the plants south of their wall and fence will be native plants, and that there'll be a serious effort to look at the loss of off-street parking that will impact that neighborhood. And so with those changes, we withdrew our appeal, and we're very appreciative of the effort of staff and of CarMax to address the community concerns, and we're pleased that they're now able to move forward with the project that will really be a good fit with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and thanks for those comments. Those are appreciated. Those are our speakers for communications on agenda items not on the agenda.
I believe that's the only 2 that we had requested tonight on non-agenda items.
Great, thank you. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the April 19th meeting. Commissioners, any additions or deletions from those minutes? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Morrissey? Approve. Commissioner Custer?
I approve.
And Commissioner Hayes?
Approve.
And I too approved.
We'll mark that as 4 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. I don't see anything on the consent calendar nor transportation items on tonight's agenda. So we'll go to public hearings. And as the city planner indicated, we only have 2 this evening. Item 4 is consideration of a zone amendment and local coastal program amendment to introduce an ordinance amending zoning ordinances, Articles 4, 4A, 12, 13, 36, and Chapter 7 of the City Code, which is implementing the implementing documents for the local coastal program cannabis facilities. So the applicant is the city of Oceanside. Again, this is a cannabis facilities zone amendment. Disclosures by commissioners before we get to staff presentation. I read the staff report and was on the commission last time we, I think, dealt with a zoning or a related item dealing with cannabis facilities. Vice Chair Morrissey?
I also read the staff report.
Thank you. Commissioner Custer?
Read the report.
Commissioner Hayes?
Also read the report.
Thank you. Staff presentation, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Cervantes with the Planning Division, and I will be presenting the zone amendment, city code amendment, and local coastal program amendment for commercial cannabis. On March 24th of this year, the City Council directed staff to bring forward a text amendment to remove the medical-only restriction from all cannabis license types that the city currently allows. The city previously removed the medical restriction from cultivation only in 2020. This action tonight will remove the medical restriction from manufacturing, distribution, testing lab, and non-storefront facilities. There are no provisions for storefront dispensaries as these are not allowed in the city. The proposed modifications will include changes to Article 4, 4A, 12, 13, and 36 of the zoning ordinance. Cannabis facilities are not allowed in the downtown district. However, it is listed as a use classification and on the use chart, so modification is needed to the downtown article. The proposed modification to the city code includes a change to section 7.130, permits not transferable. The proposed zone amendment and related local coastal program amendment will remove the medical-only restriction for existing cannabis-related uses that the city currently allows. There are no changes to the types of permitted facilities. There are no changes to the existing caps on cultivation or non-storefront facilities. The text change to section 7.130 of the city code will allow staff to approve transfer of existing local licenses if the proposed changes meet all of city requirements. There are a handful of facilities that have already been granted a regulated use permit by City Council. If those facilities wish to expand their operation to add adult use, they will be required to submit a substantial conformity application to modify the use permit and update or modify their local license application. The Planning Commission package included an attachment called Community Benefits. As part of the original local license application, facilities were required to submit information regarding benefits the business would provide to the local community. Benefits may be in the form of volunteer services, donations, or financial support to the city. Although cannabis facilities are not allowed within the city's coastal zone, the proposed text amendment does affect Article 4, 4A, 12, and 36, which are applied citywide and thus require a coastal certification. At this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2021-P19, recommending approval of the city code and zoning ordinance amendments and local coastal plan amendment. Thank you. I am available for questions, and there are also 8 speakers who would like to speak via Zoom.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I should add that I think all the commissioners also received a number of emails in our disclosures. I think we left that out, so we did get some information from the public. I have a question, maybe this is for city planner. So when the city council adopted in 2018 an ordinance that would allow the establishment of an operation of different commercial medical cannabis facilities, was it contemplated that it would expand beyond that after that? I guess I'm trying to understand the evolution of where the city's gone with this entire issue. Was that contemplated initially? This is an add-on that makes sense in terms of where this entire issue is going. So kind of what prompted this change?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I would describe the process as evolving. It's a new industry, it's a new field, not to state the obvious, but it wasn't that long ago when it was completely illegal.
Right.
And so I think we're all kind of blazing a trail as we go. And as we have continued down that path, there's been issues raised and then council responding to those. Your staff report notes several changes throughout this process, removing buffer requirements on agricultural cultivation projects, removing the medical-only use on cultivation. More recently, and Stephanie can chime in as well, we've heard from the medical-only facility operators that it's a very strong impediment to their business to only be able to do medical cannabis. So the medical cannabis was allowed first, then the state allowed adult use, sometimes called recreation. And so that evolved, and as a result, our city process is evolving, and the council, I think, is responding to those comments. We do have one applicant here. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to have one applicant online, but again, Stephanie, anything to add to my answer?
Yeah, so I just want to add what we have heard from our existing facilities and our applicants going through the process is that having the medical-only restriction does limit their ability to sell their product. So allowing the adult use opens up a greater market for them. Because of the state allowing the recreational use, it has really limited the medical market in the state of California. One of the other points that we have heard is that allowing our facilities to do the adult use as well helps them compete against the existing illegal markets, which is something that they can't currently compete against.
Interesting, yeah. That's kind of what I thought how this might have evolved. Commissioners, any questions for staff at this point? Okay. It is a public hearing, so I think we're ready to go. You said we had 8 speakers go to the public and get their input, so if you want to call those out.
Yes. So the first speaker is Erica Leary. Erica, if you could just unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Erica.
Okay. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Erica Leary. I'm the Program Manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, whose mission is to reduce the harm of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other drugs in the cities of Carlsbad, Oceanside, and Vista through community action, education, support, and collaboration. I've also lived here in Oceanside for over 25 years. I'm following up with the email I sent and hope that you had a chance to review the information. Were you troubled at all that the manufacturer and distributor you recently approved posts videos on Instagram, including one with a girl who looks about 15 vaping marijuana concentrate to the tune "Dab Bitch"? If that's the commercial marijuana market you were expecting when you approved this license, there's probably nothing I can say that would make you hesitate. But if you're starting to realize that this industry is using the same tactics as the tobacco industry to create high-potent products and recruit a generation of users, perhaps you'll realize it would be wise not to keep changing cannabis policy until there are adequate safeguards in place. Removing the medicinal restriction, but still allowing it, creates the worst of both worlds by providing access to marijuana for those at 20. Just today, I heard a radio ad on 91X, an alternative rock station, for a dispensary in Chula Vista that advertised now open for those 21 and up for recreational use and 18 and up for medical. It's not really a surprise that marijuana has surpassed alcohol as the most commonly used drug by teens. It's now legally available to them, gets delivered to doorsteps throughout the state, and no one has conducted a compliance check to see if businesses are checking ID. I hope you have a chance to attend the virtual press conference that was mentioned earlier, taking place this Thursday at 10 a.m. And for anyone listening, we'll put a link on our website, northcoastalpreventioncoalition.org. You probably all are old enough to remember when the Surgeon General released his first report on the dangers of smoking and health in 1964. Let's not wait that long this time to commit to putting the public health concerns above profit motives of this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Peggy Walker.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I wanted to throw in my 2 cents. There are, to me, few more precious tenets in democracy than control over land use. And I know this action tonight is administrative, but we all know this has always been a ploy of the marijuana industry to come in as medicinal to get where we are today, legitimizing recreational sales. In spite of the fact the public has been led to believe something different, medical marijuana has never been anything but something a buyer buys because he deems it to make him feel better. An acquaintance in Colorado who happened to be a marijuana user warned early on about this. Don't let pot businesses into your neighborhoods under the auspices of medical, because once they get a foot in the door, they won't stop. Now that we're here with adult use, I ask you to take responsibility for ensuring that this industry does not take control of our land use with future unwanted uses that I see in other cities. I'm concerned because I've heard the term that tonight we're evolving this industry, because adult use means opening up a much wider commercial market, because I've seen widespread commercialization in other cities, and because Oceanside implemented strict buffer regulations, but time and again waived them in favor of marijuana businesses, not concerned residents. So please, I ask you, be responsible advisors. Don't let Oceanside change to the point residents no longer want to live here. Marijuana is today the #1 drug used by youth. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Becky Rapp. And the next speaker on deck will be Kelly McCormick. So Becky, you're on. Please unmute.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a mother and a youth group mentor, deeply concerned for the safety and welfare of Oceanside, as land use decisions have a great impact on the city. Oceanside has embraced Medipot all too quickly, and the thought of moving to recreational marijuana without waiting for the fallout would be detrimental. The community is struggling with issues such as how to pay their bills, food insecurities, anxiety, and depression. Marijuana is the wrong answer at the wrong time. The city has been clear about their goals and has set a high bar to create smoke and alcohol-free parks and neighborhoods, and protecting youth by licensing tobacco retailers. The decision to change the definition of Medipot to recreational pot counters these important previous decisions and sends a message that use of drugs is for fun to youth. The word change is far more than semantics. It is dangerous. Some people claim that the resulting increase in marijuana sales will bring in revenue to the city, but they're ignoring the costs to communities and families. The community is worn down with the homeless and the hopeless. The personal and society costs and expenses associated with permitting and enforcing marijuana outlets far outweigh the revenues they will bring in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker will be Kelly McCormick, and the speaker after that will be Kathleen Lipton. Kelly, you're on.
Hi, good evening. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm the parent of a teenager and a young adult, and I run a youth mentoring program. It's disappointing but not surprising that you've been asked to change the designation of marijuana businesses from so-called medical to recreational, also known as adult use. This has been the strategy of the marijuana industry the whole time, a fact that's well documented. This is not unlike the early years of tobacco marketing, when doctors, or at least actors playing the part of doctors, told consumers that cigarettes would help with everything from morning sickness to weight loss to nervousness. All these years later, we're aware of the damage caused by cigarettes and the dangerous lies told by the tobacco industry. By the way, tobacco giant Altria is a major investor in the marijuana industry, also not a surprise to anyone who's been watching. By taking this step, the Planning Commission would be checking the next box in the strategy that was planned before marijuana business were even approved in Oceanside. Meanwhile, the use of high THC concentrates by teens continues to increase. A recent article from the Denver Post illustrates this point, saying that more than half of teens who had used pot in the past month had dabbed. In other words, vaped a high THC marijuana concentrate, up from 20% just 4 years ago. Concentrates are much stronger than smokable flower, and vape pens are easy for students to hide and consume discreetly. A growing body of scientific evidence shows that high-potency products are more likely to bring on or worsen mental health issues in young people, including an increased rate of death by suicide. Public health and safety is stated as a goal of public policy. Agreeing to increase access to marijuana products would undermine that directive and lead to a more dangerous environment for young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker will be Kathleen Lipton, and the next speaker on deck will be Judy Strange. Kathleen, you're on. Lippitt. Sorry about that.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and fellow commissioners. I've been watching. My name is Kathleen Lippitt. I'm a public health practitioner, mother, grandmother, and I've supported communities in trying to help them achieve the priorities that are of greatest concern to them. And I can tell you that in attending meetings across the county and across the city, they do not, this is not the priority that is important to them. Unfortunately, as the marijuana industry's influence has grown, so has the willingness of city electeds to turn from the priorities that they once promised prior to their election to the priorities that the industry demands. As cities capitulate to them and believe that, okay, now we're done, we can move on with our other business, that doesn't happen. It is only the beginning, and they will be relentless with more and more requests and demands and threats of litigation, and it never ends. And so their initial promises, I don't know how many of you remember their promises that this was only about medicine, and that would be, it would cease at the end of that if they got that. And then it went to the decriminalization and then the legalization and then the recreational use. And now we've got youth who have been educated by the marijuana industry. And it's unfortunate that there is a plethora of research that has continued to document the harms of this drug. But there is a pregnant silence on the part of public electeds who seem not to be aware of it. Very few public electeds take the time to actually look at research, not that was provided or funded by the marijuana industry, but comes from legitimate researchers with no economic conflicts of interest. When you think that you've got a tremendous number of voices that are demanding capitulation to marijuana regulations, please consider that nearly all of them are from those who have economic conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Judy Strange, and the speaker on deck will be Carolyn Green. Judy, you're on.
Good evening, Planning Commission. First of all, I want to thank you for your service. I've always been impressed with the amount of research that must be done and staff reports before this meeting. I'm the mother of 2 adults who live in Oceanside with their families, and they have 6 children between them that are teenagers and young adults. So I've watched with interest what's been going on in the city of Oceanside, because I care deeply about the messages that people on the Planning Commission, the City Council send by the decisions they make. And this is another one, to negate the dangers of marijuana by calling it recreational. I began my professional life as a social worker, and I learned there that the problems that occur in adolescence and the behaviors that begin there are very difficult to rectify. And no amount of supposed marijuana taxes or grants will ever compensate for the negative consequences of promoting marijuana use by commercializing it in recreational storefronts and other types of marijuana businesses. I'm interested in the comments that previously made regarding the marketing of marijuana that is so similar to tobacco. And I'm reminded of a statement made by one of the judges 15 years ago when they looked at big tobacco's legislation and said, over the course of more than 50 years, defendants lied, misrepresented, and deceived the American public. They have marketed and sold their lethal product with zeal, with deception, with single-minded focus on their financial success, and without regard for human tragedy or social costs that success impacted. So I ask, are we looking at increasing the marijuana footprint and normalizing it by calling it recreational? Are we denying the years of work that it took to bring to reality the dangers of tobacco use? Are we turning a blind eye to the similarities of big marijuana to big tobacco? This is an unfortunate next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like our last speaker was Carol Green. Was there any more speakers? This will be our 7th speaker.
Hello?
Okay, Carol, you're on.
Thank you. I just wanted to see if you had anyone else that was going to come up. Thank you for listening to me today. I was interested in the chair's comments about how we got here, and my impression would be that this is sort of the slippery slope of marijuana commercialization, where money takes priority over public safety or what the community really wants. You know clearly that you are now tasked with making decisions about removing buffer zones that were put there to protect the community. And I'm hearing exemption after exemption because no one seems to be able to follow the rules that have been put in place. Sadly, commercialization and marketing sometimes convince people of things that aren't true. There's a whole industry born of that. And if anyone watched Mad Men, you really do understand it. Took us more than 30 years, lots of money, lawsuits to realize the tobacco industry told us what the tobacco industry told us was not true. And now they've just changed the names and the packaging, and the playbook is all the same. As the marijuana industry tries to convince us with billboards, Instagram posts, and marketing campaigns that target our kids, no matter what they say. And let me be clear, there are study after study that show that the legal market does not drive out the illegal market. It only allows it to hide in plain sight. Most people can't tell the difference. And this allows the permitted shops and the unpermitted shops to be virtually interchangeable. In honor of Mental Health Month and in honor of my son's birthday this month, I would like to let you know that according to the National Association on Mental Illness, there's a strong correlation between marijuana and the onset of psychosis. Studies show that marijuana is linked to schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, increased anxiety, and other mood disorders. You will not find these warning labels on marijuana products, but they are true. You can look them up. I can talk to you for hours about the impact of marijuana on the brain or on mental health, but I know you don't have time for that. I want to let you know that the reason I'm here is not because I'm a professional. It's because maybe I'm just a mom who can't do anything else to help her child, because my son used marijuana. He experienced psychosis and he died last year. So I can't celebrate his birthday or help him get his brain back together, is what he used to say. I don't know what's wrong with my brain. So as leaders of a city and people that are in charge of land use and recommendations, I implore you to think about the true cost of your actions and the reasons that you public service as volunteers in this community find real information, especially to protect our community. I tell you this now because you'll be inundated with false information, as you already have been, and false promises as I continue to watch the slippery slope of commercialization and scream as loud as I can, as politely as I can, because I don't want other parents to go through the pain I've gone through. And Saturday night, I learned of another young man, 23 years old, who died in a very similar fashion after an experience with psychosis and marijuana. This is an epidemic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol, and sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Does that conclude the speakers?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. I had a couple of questions for staff. I think somebody made a comment earlier that the medical cannabis facilities, adult is considered 18, anybody over 18. The reference here is adult. We're being asked to look at is adult use cannabis facilities. Same age grouping, so anybody over 18, or is it 21?
Chair Rosales, Commissioner. So adult cannabis is 21 and older.
Mm-hmm.
Medical is allowed at 18 and older with the medical card. So a recommendation from a doctor. So the recreational is 21 and older.
Okay. Second question. This decision, or this idea of changing the standards and including this type of facility, was this reviewed by police, chief of police, their department, and their standards? I guess my question is, what kind of feedback did we get from our chief and or his staff?
Stephanie, I'm not sure we reached out to police, did we?
We did have a discussion with Chief Armijo. In conversations with the police department, they have been okay with the city's approach to cannabis facilities. They're more concerned with the illegal facilities within the city and with the bad actors. The facilities that have gone through the process, they have submitted security plans that have been reviewed by a police department. All operators and all employees are subject to background checks, which are reviewed by a police department. So the process that we have established, police department is okay with. And for the most part, it's just the illegal operators that they raise concern for police department.
Okay, so to paraphrasing the thought or your comments, in essence, the chief and staff feel because it's a controlled location as opposed to uncontrolled illicit, there's more confidence that model, that structure works for things that they're concerned about. If I've got that right.
That's correct. So just to add, so police department, they're familiar with the security plans that these facilities have put in place. They understand that these facilities have cameras, armed security on site. Those are conditions of approval for these facilities. So they are comfortable with these facilities operating where they have been approved, and as long as they are following all of our city requirements.
Okay, two more questions. Sorry to hog the conversation here, but where does this put the city of Oceanside in relation to other cities within, let's just focus on the county. Are we out ahead? Are we consistent with other cities, even maybe behind anybody? Or where do we put ourselves with this proposed change?
Chair Rosales, commissioners, I don't have exact names of other cities that are doing this, or a full list, I should say. I know the city of San Diego does allow medical and adult, but I don't know of any other cities right off the top of my head that are also doing adult.
Okay. Maybe I'll save my last question for later. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Go ahead, Commissioner Hayes.
I just had one that was similar to yours. Have there been any issues with the existing medical marijuana facilities from a safety or security standpoint from the police?
Commissioner Hayes, commissioners, at this point, we have not had any complaints from police department or from code enforcement received for the facilities that are up and running. Community has been very quiet on those facilities. We do have our non-storefront facility has been open for almost a year, and we have not received any complaints from the community regarding that facility.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morrissey?
You know, I'm aware that the police enforce the laws, but I would like to have had someone from the police department that maybe is out at large in the community have an opinion of this. It's one thing being medicinal, it's another thing being recreational. And based on what I heard on this call today, I just would like more information.
Thank you. Commissioner Custer, anything to add?
Well, I guess I don't really have a question, but I have several reasons that I'm not in favor of this. First of all, when these businesses came to Oceanside, they knew they were being licensed only for medical use. So I don't think that should be a consideration as a reason for us to expand their licensing. And also, it's not the city's responsibility to make it easier for any business to compete with the same illegal market. And I just think that we need to wait and go slower on something like this. There's too many unknowns with the long-term use of recreational.
Right, thank you. Which I guess brings me to my next question, and maybe we don't have an answer, but we heard a few comments from speakers earlier about the slippery slope, and I guess it, in my mind, prompted a question of if we've done medical cannabis and now we're looking at recreational adult use, what's the next natural step in this process? Is there still room on that slope, or is this kind of the last, because we talked about evolution of this process, what would be the natural next step? Is there a natural next step?
Mr. Chairman, it's speculative at best, but if you look at the regulatory scheme on cannabis facilities, first it was medical and now it's adult. As Stephanie noted in her staff report, the City of Oceanside does not allow storefront dispensaries, medical or adult. That could be the next step in the evolution. As Stephanie noted in the report, and the direction from council was very clear, this does not include storefront dispensaries.
Okay. I actually do have one more question. There's a limitation to where this expansion could go, and I thought I circled it, but I think it was not in the coastal zone and not downtown, if I got that right. And if I got that right, why is it limited to areas outside of there? What's the thinking?
Chair Rosales, commissioners, cannabis facilities are only allowed in our ag districts if they are cultivation or nursery, and only in our industrial districts if they are manufacturing.
Oh man, you got to pick that up. No, thank you.
Hang on a second. We probably need to mute somebody. Good? Okay, go ahead.
And they're only allowed in the industrial districts if they are manufacturing, distribution, testing lab, or non-storefronts. I'm not 100% certain what the thinking was behind not allowing them in the coastal and in the downtown areas. That was a provision that was put in place as part of the original ordinance from 2017, 2018. So I'm not sure exactly why that occurred, but that's always been part of the cannabis provisions.
Okay. So back to the slippery slope and evolution of this, that restriction could also at some point maybe go away, and it could be allowed downtown or in the coastal zone.
And I understand the logic. A slippery slope kind of is a red flag word, if you will.
Yeah, it's maybe not the right word.
Some people
but
may just look at it as evolution, that as we have gone through this process, we're learning and we're seeing issues and we're addressing that and changing. Some people may say that's a slippery slope and we shouldn't be doing that. Some people, you've heard the testimony, wait, you're going too fast, wait and see. But other people feel that we have been doing an incremental approach, and I'm trying to be fair to both sides.
Yeah, no, and that's a good comment. I think we've heard both from the commissioners and from the public that both sides of that. Maybe this is the natural evolution, but maybe we are at the same time going too quickly. So that being said, I actually am out of questions for me, but I'll throw back to the commissioners if they have anything to add or somebody would like to make a motion at this point.
I just have one comment. I mean,
Sure.
it's not lost on me what the sentiment of the callers were that called in. And I believe that everybody that's on this commission has the motivation to have a vibrant city that our kids can come back and work. And I think just because something is legal doesn't make it good. And while I can see definitely the attributes of medicinal, I just wonder this recreational, so now it's out there, and is there someone that's going to try it that maybe if it wasn't so available, they wouldn't try it? And is it one more person that may not go down a path that the one mother called? And I just celebrated a son that graduated from college, and as a parent, I was really proud of that. But I don't see many parents saying, well, my son can smoke so many doobies in one night. I just don't see that being a good thing. So I would have a hard time supporting this. While it's legal, I don't know that it's good. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Anybody want to take a crack at a motion?
Can I make one statement?
You certainly can.
I know there's one thing that bothers me with some of the calls that we heard, and it is that concern that it can be delivered to doorsteps right now, and they're not checking IDs. And I know at the state level, and this is probably why even our own council has been deliberating this so carefully over the years, is trying to figure out how to get more control over it. And in one sense, it seems like this step gets us one step closer to at least getting some control over it by only allowing people that are 21 and over. Right now, any 17-year-old can order it and have it come to their doorstep. And I know this from having kids that are in high school with friends that have done it, that it's really easy for them to get. It's something at the statewide level and maybe at the federal level eventually we'll get there that really needs to be looked at. But I think this step and how thoughtful our council has been in trying to regulate it and control it is a good way to go.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm willing to make a motion to approve.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the zone amendment as proposed by staff. It's actually a...
Would you like me to read it out?
If you wouldn't mind going through formally and reading the recommended action.
Sure. So I make a motion to approve adopting the Planning Commission Resolution Number 2021 P19, recommending City Council approval of City Code and Zoning Amendment ZA 21-00002 and Local Coastal Program Amendment LCPA 21-00002 with findings of approval and attached herein, attachment number 1. And second, to confirm the issuance of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, section 15061B3 under the common sense exemption.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We do not have a second, so that motion fails. If somebody would like to make an alternative motion, or you can amend your motion to something different. I don't know what that would be, but I'll make that offer. But the first motion has failed, so.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we do not find in staff's recommendations, and then we vote against this.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to not approve the recommended action and a second. I would ask, so I'm kind of on the fence. I'm generally in favor of kind of what the city's intending to do here in terms of whether it be generating revenue, try to handle the marijuana issue in a formalized, controlled environment. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. I guess where I am tonight is we got a lot of input from the public and from staff, and in my mind, there's still a couple of things that probably should be addressed. And I asked the question about, where's the city in relationship to other cities? I'd like to see that information to kind of know and provide some sort of context. And then we had a question about the police department and their input. We got some staff feedback on that, but I'd like to see something a little bit more robust. So if I'm saying all this because maybe the motion, I'll just throw this out, maybe we can modify the motion if you're open to it, that we either continue this item with those caveats, that we get more information. Maybe that doesn't make you comfortable to still go ahead with it. That's kind of where I am. So any thoughts or input, or is that not important to you to get additional information?
Is it just?
The maker of the motion, yeah.
After you.
There's nothing at this time, not hearing from the police, or I see this as, you can't buy alcohol till you're 21, but we know there are plenty of people that go in and buy alcohol for people under 21, and that will happen in this situation too. I don't see any benefit to this.
Okay, Mr. Morrissey? Same.
Well, this is just one of those tough things in society. We all know people that have experienced the same fate as the mother talked about her son, and it's just if we could keep one person from going down that route, I think it's a good thing. And like I said, I just think just because it's legal doesn't make it good for our community. So for that reason, I'm not sure. We have a motion. I guess we voted on it.
We haven't voted on it. We're still in discussion, but we.
So what happens if we vote? If we're to be voted down, does it come up again? Do they get another crack at it? Or do we get more information from, say, the police? And how do we know, like what Commissioner Hayes talked about? They deliver this to the house, and you don't know who's taking delivery of it. So,
yeah, I think the next, say we split our votes here, and your motion doesn't get upheld, this action is a recommendation to the full city council as this change. So it goes to them anyway, no matter how we vote. But if we vote it down, they have to take up the deliberation and decide what they want to do. But procedurally, is there anything one way or another that happens that changes that next step? The next step is the city council to consider this item. So,
Mr. Chairman, generally, your bylaws say that if you have a tie vote, that you bring it back to your next meeting if there are absent members, and you have three absent members tonight. In this case, it's legislative in nature, and so Barbara can correct me if I'm wrong, if we have to hold your recommendation. The council is scheduled to review this on June 2nd. This is just my opinion. I would think it would be better to get your comments to them either through whatever motion you want to pass, rather than postponing it to another meeting and not getting those comments to them. Barbara, you have anything to add?
Excuse me. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your next meeting is scheduled after June 2nd.
Right. But at that meeting, we're likely to have the missing commissioners and getting their input as well.
But it's after the June 2nd city council meeting?
Yes.
And so your point is, let's get them something before their meeting. So I think you're encouraging a vote tonight.
I am. I mean, it's not an exact process. You could postpone it to your next meeting, and we could inform the council that you wanted more time and you wanted all of your commissioners to be here and to get more information, and perhaps they delay it. I believe it's been noticed. I kind of doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, I was
wanna-
thinking the same. I wonder if they'd be interested in, on June 2nd, if, depending on how we vote here tonight, in having us be able to engage the remaining commissioners, or if they just want to go ahead and proceed with their own deliberations and actions.
I think the council, again, not to preordain anything, but the council has given us direction to come back with this amendment. So you can kind of read the tea leaves on that. I would suggest that you get information to the council rather than postpone it for the other three. I think it's a little awkward to have the other three missing commissioners weigh in outside of this process without the public and the TV, et
That's a
cetera.
good point. Okay, well, that being said, anything else? I think we should take a vote on the motion on the floor, Commissioner.
Well, I'd just
Custer?
like to point out that it probably would generate more revenue for the city, but the city's main responsibility is the safety of its residents. So the city can come up with other ways to generate that revenue. That's the main point.
I agree. Okay, we have a motion and a second to not move forward with the staff recommendation on this item. So I think we're ready for vote. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner or Vice Chair Morrissey?
I vote yes on the
On the motion to not proceed. Yes.
Yes on the denial.
And
Yes on the denial.
Commissioner Hayes?
No on the not.
Okay, so we have 2 yeses and a no. I am going to vote no as well. I support the general idea and the model for what the city's trying to do. The pace may be a bit off, and I think by saying no and pushing the item to the city council, they will see the record of the discussion here and deliberation tonight. Hopefully, they take that in and they will take action according to how they feel this should move forward. But we will have had our opportunity to weigh in on the issue, as has the public. So, City Planner?
We will forward, the vote is 2 in favor, 2 against, and again, the motion was not to support the staff recommendation.
Correct.
And we will try and do a summary of the comments. We're not going to put down every comment, but we'll try and some kind of summary of the comments that we heard across from the 4 of you. We'll also note that 3 commissioners were absent.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, good discussion. Thank you, everybody. We'll go to the next item then on the agenda. Item 5 is consideration of a development plan and conditional use permit and variance to construct a very large 142,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility with a fleet vehicle parking for a package delivery service. The applicant, the project is called Ocean Ranch Distribution Facility. The applicant is Ryan Childs, Lincoln Property Company. Start with disclosures. I read the staff report, got a number of emails. Also had the opportunity to receive a presentation by a representative of the applicant a couple of weeks ago. Very informative. Vice Chair Morrissey?
I looked at the drawings, perused the staff report.
Commissioner Custer?
Read the report, looked at the drawings, and drove by the site. And I think we had some emails, a few emails,
We
yes,
did.
and read
Thank
the
you.
emails.
Commissioner Hayes?
Also reviewed the staff report and similarly had a brief presentation on the site. I had quite a few conversations and questions about the project. just because a lot of my background is freight planning. So I wanted to make sure that the project wasn't going to be impactful on the neighborhood.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, Robert, how are you?
Good evening, Chair. Doing well.
We'll turn it over to you then.
All right, great. Well, good evening. I'm Rob D. Mahowski with the Planning Division, and here this evening to present the Ocean Ranch Distribution Center, also known as the Amazon Logistics Facility. Located within the Ocean Ranch Corporate Center, the project site consists of 2 parcels totaling 27.95 acres, has a general plan designation of light industrial and a zoning designation of limited industrial. Development in Ocean Ranch is regulated by the Ocean Ranch Master Development Plan, which utilizes the limited industrial zoning designation as for permitted uses and other regulations. Surrounding land uses consist of light industrial uses such as biotech, warehouse, distribution, as well as to the north is the St. Cloud residential subdivision with 349 units, and that's located directly to the north of the site. It's at a lower elevation and is separated from the parcel by approximately 150-foot landscape slope. The project site has been previously graded and is void of any sensitive habitat. Street improvements, including curb, gutter, and sidewalk, were installed with the initial phases of Ocean Ranch. And the request is for a development plan to construct a 142,746 square foot warehouse distribution facility for package delivery service, a conditional use permit to allow a warehouse and distribution storage in excess of 50,000 square feet, and to allow more than 6 heavy truck terminals, and also a variance to construct a retaining wall that exceeds a maximum height of 8 feet. The proposed logistics facility would provide last mile delivery service of products ordered through Amazon. Packages will be shipped to the facility, processed, and loaded onto vans for delivery to customers. The proposed facility would have 125,756 square feet of warehouse and 16,990 square feet of office area. A loading dock with 15 truck terminals will be located on the north side of the building. And access to the site is provided on Ocean Ranch Boulevard on both the south and east project frontages. Ocean Ranch Boulevard actually curves around heading to the north. As a 24-hour operation, the facility would have an estimated 500 employees working during multiple shifts. The site would include 703 parking spaces for delivery vans, 230 spaces for employee parking, and 15 truck terminals with 8 spaces for trailer parking. And there would also be a staging area to accommodate 144 vehicles in a queue for delivery loading. To avoid conflicts, with commuter traffic, 230 vans would leave the facility at 10 a.m. in waves every 20 to 30 minutes, starting at 10 a.m. and returning by 10 p.m. There would also be flex vehicles that would typically leave between 4 to 6 p.m. And for deliveries, the facility would have 21 tractor trailers delivering goods, packages 24 hours a day. There would be a one in, one out approach where one truck would enter, one truck would leave with a trailer. Yeah, so over a 24-hour period, no more than 21 tractor trailers would enter the east driveway where the loading docks are. As previously noted, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow more than 6 trucking terminals. So as a by right permitted use with a development plan, a warehouse distribution facility is allowed to have 6 truck terminals by right, and any additional ones require a conditional use permit to analyze the need and potential impacts of those. And as mentioned, the trailers would be picked up and dropped off as one truck would come in and one truck would leave. And one item to note is that this facility would not operate as a traditional distribution facility where the primary purpose is having a warehouse full of goods, and the heavy trucks are the primary haulers of goods to their final destination. The trucks basically provide the packages to the facility for that last mile delivery via the vans and other delivery vehicles. The applicant is requesting the variance to construct the retaining wall along the north property line that exceeds the maximum height of 8 feet. Based on existing topography, the applicant is proposing to depress the final grade to establish ADA compliant elevations and also reduce the visibility of the building from the adjacent neighborhood to the north. Elevations at the north side of the building would be dug out, resulting in an interior facing retaining wall that would have heights between 8 to 17 feet at about 729 feet in length. And as shown on the exhibit, the proposed retaining wall would be landscaped with vines on both the top and bottom to provide screening. And since it's interior facing, the building would also screen the retaining wall so it would not be visible from adjacent properties other than on the interior of the site. And the construction would be a shotcrete wall material. In accordance with the Ocean Ranch architectural guidelines, the 46-foot tall building is designed with concrete tilt wall panels with score lines to match. Metal awnings and a canopy are located around the perimeter to also break up the wall plane. The primary exterior paint is called nebulous white with dark accent squares, and the parapet is painted with a blue color that is signature with Amazon. And the architectural plans have been reviewed by the Ocean Ranch Architectural Committee as required by the Ocean Ranch Master Development Plan. Here's the north elevation that shows the loading docks in the north, as well as the south elevation, which is the main entrance, the main of the building that would be facing south on Ocean Ranch Boulevard. And then the east and elevation will show the continuation of the design, and the west side of the building is where the van loading would occur, and there's a canopy that covers the queuing area there. The proposed project would have a landscape area of 243,413 square feet, representing a 20% lot coverage. That's above the minimum required of 15% coverage. And the landscape palette includes a variety of trees and shrubs consistent with development in Ocean Ranch. Perimeter trees include crepe myrtle, palo verde, and Torrey pine, and there'd be shade trees throughout the parking areas that would include tipu tree and African sumac. And perimeter shrubs would also be provided to provide additional screening along the north property line. As part of the mitigated negative declaration for the Ocean Ranch development plan, there was a cumulative cap on the trip generation for the entire industrial park, and that was capped at 35,754 trips that were allocated to each of the original 21 lots in the park. And each lot was, the allocation was based on different types of uses based on regional trip generation. The project site, which is lot 19 and 20, was allocated 3,974 average daily trips. And the project is anticipated to generate 695 ADT as provided in the traffic analysis from the applicant. And that would result in a surplus of 3,279 trips that will not be used for this project. Heavy truck trips, as previously noted, the project would have 21 heavy truck trips per day using the one in, one out approach to avoid queuing and also idling of vehicles. As a condition of approval, the applicant would be required to have a haul route approved by the planning division and the transportation section of Public Works to ensure that that haul routes do not impact any surrounding neighborhoods and would use the preferred route to get to the interstate, which will likely be by Ocean Oceanside Boulevard rather than going the opposite way towards Mesa Drive. Noise was a major concern from the adjacent neighborhood. The applicant conducted an acoustical analysis and concluded that the project would comply with the city noise ordinance at all property boundaries as required. Furthermore, the proposed retaining wall would reduce the operational noise level by an additional 4 to 5 decibels. And the applicant also indicated that the trucks, the tractor trailers would not use a traditional backup beeping sound. They would use, I believe it's a white noise. The applicant can probably elaborate on that, but there wouldn't be an audible noise off-site as a traditional truck backing up. As required by the enhanced notification policy, the applicant prepared a community outreach plan and conducted 2 community meetings via Zoom, and those meetings were primarily with residents of the St. Cloud community. And a report was prepared that was provided as an attachment to the staff report. And during the meetings, there was concern regarding noise, light, aesthetics of the site, and traffic, among other concerns. And the applicant provided clarification to these concerns or addressed them, and also provided direct outreach to some of the residents, and I'll allow them to elaborate on those efforts. And as during discussions with the applicant, we determined that an appropriate action would be to have a condition of approval requiring a good neighbor policy be prepared that provides contact information for the Amazon facility and a way for neighbors to voice any complaints and have those addressed in a timely manner to be a good neighbor. And finally, regarding the CEQA analysis, an addendum was prepared pursuant to CEQA section 15162 and 15164, and this was for the Ocean Ranch mitigated negative declaration. And the results of the addendum determined that the project would not result in new impacts or increase the severity of impacts previously identified in the Ocean Ranch M&D. And I'll note that there was a letter that was emailed to all the commissioners this afternoon. I received and that was regarding the CEQA addendum from Richard Drury. And prior to the meeting this evening, Mr. Drury indicated that they will rest on the written comments for the purposes of tonight's meeting and will not attend the meeting or wish to speak regarding the matter of the content of that letter. The proposed project is consistent with the land use policies of the light industrial land use designation, with the objective to provide and protect industrial land and accommodate a wide range of low-intensity industrial uses that can be located in proximity to residential uses with minimal buffering and attenuation measures. The project was reviewed in accordance with the development regulations of the Ocean Ranch Master Development Plan and the limited industrial district of the zoning ordinance, and is found to be in compliance with all applicable development standards. As designed, the project and land use are consistent and compatible with existing development in Ocean Ranch and the surrounding area. The proposed truck terminals are incidental to the primary use of the building and are designed and located compatibly with uses in the surrounding area. The proposed retaining wall would fully screen the truck terminals from the residential neighborhood below. And the warehouse square footage exceeding 50,000 square feet is also consistent with similar uses in the area, both in Ocean Ranch and Pacific Coast Business Park, where you have facilities are actually the FedEx facility, Coca-Cola, and Ocean Ranch that have exceed the square footage of this facility. And as previously mentioned, this facility would not be a traditional warehouse storage or a distribution center. And finally, as justification for a variance, the applicant indicated that the wall is necessary based on the proposed finished grade of the site. Compliance with the maximum 8-foot height would require the retaining wall to be stepped back and would push the building further to the south, which would restrict, conflict with the site design and the fire lane distance. On the south frontage, a fire lane of 35 feet is required. So the building orientation and the fire lane would be impacted if the wall had to be stepped back. And an additional benefit of the retaining wall is that it will screen the truck loading area from the St. Cloud neighborhood to the north, and would also act as a sound buffer to further reduce the decibel levels. Staff finds that the request is consistent with the general plan, zoning ordinance, and the requisite findings for approval. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission by motion approve an addendum to the mitigated negative declaration adopted for the Ocean Ranch Master Development Plan pursuant to CEQA section 15162 and 15164, and approve development plan 2014, conditional use permit 2023, and variance 2103 by adopting Planning Commission Resolution 2021 P20 with associated findings and conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is in attendance this evening, and I believe has a PowerPoint presentation to go along with that.
Great, thank you, Robert. Any questions for staff? I don't see any at this time, thank you. So we'll go to the applicant. Applicant or the representative would come forward. Introduce yourself.
Where to navigate?
Chair Rosalys, Commissioners, I'm Ryan Childs. I'm here on behalf of LPC property owner. So first, I'm going to briefly go over the agenda and what we're here to talk about. So we'll do an LPC overview and who we are, project overview and objectives, our partnership with Amazon and the benefits of Amazon to the city of Oceanside, the Ocean Ranch Master Plan, and how the proposed development fits in, and community outreach and outcomes to discuss what we heard, what we did, and what we learned. So Lpc West Overview, we are a San Diego, we have an office in San Diego. Over the past 5 years, we've entitled over 2 million square feet of life science, multifamily, and industrial projects in San Diego. We are committed to San Diego. We've got an office in San Diego, and we're local, and we care about our impact to each of the communities that we're in. So quickly, thank you, Robert, for the detailed project overview, so we can go through this relatively quickly. As Robert stated, we are zoned for light industrial. This will be an Amazon logistics center for last mile transit. We're located on Ocean Ranch Boulevard, near the northeast part of Ocean Ranch. We're a single story, 142,746 square foot building across just shy of 20 acres. We're installing solar to offset 50% of the building's power usage. Through thoughtful design, we are including landscaping and screening buffers, and our design aligns with the Ocean Ranch Master Plan. So as we saw, this is our plan, just to get everybody reoriented. The top is the north, and the building sits on the east side, running north to south, and the van parking staging area is on the west side. So Amazon is a partner, and the benefits that they'll bring to the city of Oceanside. The proposed facility is designed for Amazon last mile, and will bring approximately 500 new jobs to the city of Oceanside, 230 direct Amazon employees, and about 200 50 to 350 contract delivery service partners. Whether you're a direct employee of Amazon or a delivery service partner, you get full-time benefits and matching 401k, family leave. Amazon also does numerous things for their employees, one of which I thought was pretty interesting and cool was the career choice tuition assistance. And they pay up to 95% of tuition for in-demand fields such as nursing, biotech, and engineering to ensure that their employees are growing. Their delivery service partner, they have delivery service partner program growth opportunities. They've got a good neighbor program outside of what's in the condition of approval. That's they listen and hear to what their employees who live in the community, what their concerns are, and they help assist in what their missions and concerns are. They've got a sustainability commitment that meets or exceeds most other companies. And so to kind of talk through the Ocean Ranch Master Plan, as previously discussed, it was adopted and approved in 1999. It was 22 lots. We are lots 19 and 20. Lot 22 was dedicated back as open space, and we did submit our amendment to MND. Continue. So kind of what we did, and back to our commitment as LPC and being good neighbors ourselves, we held our first community outreach meeting on March 10th, and we listened and we heard a lot of concerns from the residents. So we went back, restudied, reanalyzed, and re-looked at our project, and then we hosted a second voluntary outreach program or an outreach meeting on the 22nd of April to kind of walk through our project again and discuss what we learned. So within that, we also met and educated other neighboring businesses. We went and walked St. Cloud. We met with residents. And so what we heard and what we learned was there was concerns about traffic, noise, layout, and line of sight. So if we talk through traffic, obviously what we heard was traffic was a potential issue. So the original trip generation rate used to develop this was based upon the approved City of Oceanside trip rate, and we have 695 ADTs. That being said, we understand that there's vans there, so we went back after our outreach meeting and reanalyzed the traffic to include the vans. So we took our steady state and said that there's going to be one van in, one van out, and steady state we have about 174 vans, and so 174 people need to come and get those vans. So that being said, that puts our ADT trip rate at 1,391 with a surplus of 2,583. We also looked at the ITE model and ran the same calculations, and that put us at 1,864 with a delta of 2,110. And so what we learned is that traffic, how we studied it in multiple different ways, well below the allotted approved ADT. Noise, what we heard is we don't want this place to be a noise factory. So what we did is we originally went back, and where the circles in yellow are is we studied ambient noise at different days, different times throughout different days of the week, and we found our baseline ambient noise level. And so what we did was we went back to study different building layouts, again, building layout kind of being one of the items, and we went with our architect and our noise consultant and secondary peer reviewer of our noise consultant and found that our building layout has the least impact to the city and then, or to the residents. And then we also analyzed it with the retaining wall that we're applying for the variance for, and that reduced it an additional 5 to 7 decibels. And then on top of that, we added landscape to go up and down that retaining wall so that it would help alleviate the noise as well. So what we learned is that with the building depressed 8 to 10 feet and sunken below, and the retaining wall, the 17-foot retaining wall on that northwest side, we're below ambient noise levels as they are today. So our building layout. So what we heard is this the best layout for the site? So we did go back again and work with our architect and reoriented the building into a few different layouts. And what we found is that with the topography and grade of the northeast side, we gain all the help from the noise aspect. And that retaining wall and slope there hides and shows that the line of sight for the residents below the building will not. If we reorientate the building from east to west, then there'll be a 42-foot high, 650-ish foot wall that will be seen from the residents below. And then the noise from the trucks and the vans will just go right down the hill because we are not going to be depressed over in that location. So we did go back and reanalyze it. We did look at different layouts, and what we learned was that where the building sits is the best layout that we have and most efficient. Last being line of sight. So again, being trying to be good neighbors and community partners, this line of sight was done for 2 specific residents that met on site in where line A and B are. We walked that with the residents. And so we put this photo of what the space is projected to look like from looking up for them specifically. And that's showing the landscape. There's 119 hedges there. They grow between 8 to 12 feet. And then there's 40 some odd trees in that general location so that the vans will be hidden from sight. So we appreciate your time this evening, as well as the efforts of staff to bring this project before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Hayes.
There's one thing that we know about Amazon is its sustainability goals that we see on commercials all the time. So noting the number of van spaces that they have and some of the concerns about noise and emissions, what's unique about this particular facility?
Unique from a sustainability standpoint?
Will the vehicles be electric?
So
is basically where I'm going.
I think there's a little bit of confusion. I heard 703 van spaces. There's 673, or yeah, 673 van spaces, and we're putting the infrastructure in to go all EV. And there's 34 spaces that will be EV ready day one. So we're working with SDG&E and Amazon to eventually go EV for all spaces.
Does that mean heavy duty truck as well, eventually?
I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I think that's it for the moment. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the public. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have 2 in-person speakers and 4 speakers that requested to talk on Zoom. The first in-person speaker is Janine Leeper.
My name's Jeannie Leeper. My address is 4286 Via Clemente, Oceanside 92057. I lived in this home that is just right across from FedEx. First there's St. Cloud, the highway, school, and then my house is right back up against the school. I've been a resident of Oceanside for 59 years. And I'm very against this facility, which I understand already. I know it's Amazon. But we already have FedEx. So we're pretty much all aware of what this facility is exactly going to be like, pretty much. And if I knew now, you know, what I should have known then, I would have spoke up about FedEx. But it's there, and, you know, maybe some things can be worked out to make that more neighborhood friendly. So the noise, the more traffic, the backup on Main Street, air pollution from hundreds of vehicles. Not to mention, there's also the post office with very many vehicles there also. So we already have 2 types of distribution center. Now we're having to look at a 3rd one. The lights are so bright at night that I have to close my shade. My bedroom window faces those lights, and we've even talked to FedEx about pointing them in a different angle because they just blare out into the whole community. It's like a spaceship up there. It's huge. And this one will be even closer. It'll be closer to St. Cloud's. It'll be closer to all of us. And so, you know, FedEx has taken away some of our quiet enjoyment in our homes, being a 24/7 facility. My bedroom window faces FedEx, a business that makes noise all hours of the night. You can hear large tractor trailer trucks moving trailers around to the docks in back, which the docks face the community, which that's great design for, you know, the aesthetics of looking at it from the street, but it's facing where we don't want the noise. And the beep, beep, beep that Mr. McWell, well, can't say his name, but the beep, beep, beep of the backing up vehicles, I hear drills taking on and off tires at night. How would you like to hear this from your pillow? At 1 a.m., 3 a.m., etc. And sometimes our minds, even though it might be quiet, it'll pick up those things. And it's really kind of hard. Lastly, this type of 24/7 business should have never been near a residential area, even closer than FedEx, where schools and kids, retirement homes with seniors and families live, right next door. And like I said, this one's even closer. This is why I'm here. Please do the right thing this time. We all need quiet time. We need rest and sleep for sanity. I was going to close there, but then after hearing these other
Actually,
gentlemen-
I'm going to ask you
okay.
to close there. Thank you very much.
Our next in-person speaker is Brian Whitbread, and the next speaker on deck will be Peggy Walker, who will be calling from Zoom.
Good evening. Thank you, Commission, for allowing me to speak. I live in the same community that the previous speaker just talked about, and we live in the Vista Capri housing community, and it's located directly north of the proposed distribution center. Now, the difference between us and St. Cloud is that we're up on a mesa similar to where this new distribution center is going to be. So you talk about line of sight. St. Cloud doesn't have a line of sight. They're below this project. We look directly towards the top of that plateau. We live in 2-story homes there, and by the second story, you've got a direct line of sight to the top of that plateau. Now, in looking at the presentations, It looks like some issues have been addressed, but again, they're looking at St. Cloud and not Vista Capri. I've got 3 issues with this right now, and first of all is lighting conditions. And as Janine had mentioned, FedEx is there. We had talked to them because their lighting for their docking bays and the loading bays were way, way too bright. And I believe having the 53-foot trailers, and if you're going to add another, 7 or 8 compared to what the original estimate was from 8 to 15, there's going to be ambient lighting over those docking bays. We need directional lighting so that it doesn't permeate over in our neighborhood. We live across the canyon, and at night, the acoustics are such where you can hear a wrench drop from FedEx when they're working on the trucks at night. This is a 24/7 operation, both with FedEx and now with Amazon. My other, and going forward, you're talking about lighting conditions in the parking lots. I've looked at the plan, and the structure or the lighting poles are going to be anywhere from 8 to 40 feet tall. There's a lot of ambient light that's going to bleed over on top of this 17-foot wall that's going to affect our living conditions at night. The noise, well, there's always going to be noise. And during the day, it doesn't matter that much, but at night, like I say, the way the acoustics run between the canyon and our neighborhood, as well as FedEx and now maybe Amazon, you're going to have noise no matter whether it comes under the environmental study or not. So lighting, the noise, I don't want to look at 700 Amazon trucks that are 12 feet high, the vans. So if you can assure me that that wall is going to cover up those vans, because I'm going to have a direct shot. I don't know if that wall is going to carry over to where that parking area is. It looks to me the way that it's going to be constructed, it's going to be directly in front of the north side of the main building. What is going to be stopping the visual effects from all the vehicles that are going to be parking in that area? So those are my 3 issues that I have with this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to Zoom speakers? Okay.
Yes, so the next Zoom speaker will be Peggy Walker, and the speaker after that will be Risa Breuer. Peggy, you can unmute your mic. Peggy, feel free to speak. I know it says she's calling in, so she may not have signed in with their name. Let's go to the next speaker. We can come back to her.
Sure.
Risa Breuer.
Lisa, did you say?
Risa. With an R. Risa Breuer. We'll try her again. Bill Roth. I just unmuted you.
Yes.
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate your service, and I appreciate your willingness to listen to some questions I have regarding this project. I think there's 5 critical questions that need to be addressed before approving this proposal. The first and foremost is traffic congestion. I was rather stunned to hear that there's going to be over 35,000 more trips being dumped onto Oceanside Boulevard, a road that is already well congested, especially during the rush hour time of evening. The second question is jobs. We're all in favor of jobs. We want more jobs. Oceanside is being blessed with continued economic growth. But the question is, do we want warehouse jobs? Warehouse industry is booming right now, but at the same time, it's also an industry that is very much investigating and investing in automation and artificial intelligence. How sustainable are these jobs? At the same time, this is prime property that in fact could be developed for high-tech jobs that are sustainable, that align with this information technology economy that we now have. The third is, what impacts would this project have on other roads other than Oceanside Boulevard? Where will all this additional congestion Oceanside Boulevard dump into? I live in Pacific Views, which has 2 egress onto Rancho del Oro. There are still very much concern in our community over the safety of RDO during commute times, especially when Miracosta is back in service. It's a road that has many issues regarding speed. We're very concerned about adding yet more truck traffic to our community that will then dump more vehicle traffic onto RDO. A final point is this community outreach. I was rather surprised to hear that, in fact, we were looking at an Amazon facility. I appreciate that the company did a job to reach out to the St. Cloud area, and I commend them for that. But I think really for this commission, we need to have a statistically valid outreach to the entire Oceanside community, because this impacts not only their traffic congestion, their lifestyles, but the fifth and final issue is also climate change. Amazon does have a commendable sustainability strategy. They are investing in electric vehicles. They have a purchase order for 100,000 electric vans. But right now, they have none, to my knowledge. None operating here in San Diego. I stand corrected if that's wrong. But how soon? I applaud that the facility will have EV capability for fueling electric vehicles. But when? What's their plan? I think that needs to be consideration before approving this project. Thank you for letting me address your commission.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Do we have the other speakers ready yet?
I'll go back to those 2 speakers. Peggy Walker. Risa Breuer. And our last speaker here, Diane Nygard. I'll go back to those other 2, but Diane, you can unmute.
Diane?
Looks like she's...
we had her earlier.
Muted. I see her on the list.
Yeah. Can you unmute her, or she has to mute herself?
Yeah, she has to unmute. I sent a message to unmute.
Okay.
Maybe away.
We give it just a little bit. The other 2 speakers are calling via phone, or are they on the computer?
One of the speakers stated they were calling from a phone. That's Peggy Walker. And the other speaker, Risa Breuer. Looks like just from Zoom, and I don't see this person on the list.
Let's try Diana one more time.
Yeah.
Okay. It looks like we're unable to get Ms. Nygard or the other 2 speakers. So is that it for the speaker requests?
Yes, that is it.
Okay.
As of now.
If Scott, if you wouldn't mind, maybe continue at least with Diane, because I think you said you sent a message?
I've asked her to unmute, and she is on the list.
Okay. Let's leave the public hearing portion open for the time being, and I think I have a couple of questions for the applicant. We can bring them up. Maybe the speakers that still want to speak, we can still get them on while we have the applicant handle some questions. Applicant, would you, Mr. Childs, would you come up back to the mic and field a few questions? So I wrote down a few different things that I heard from the speakers, and then I had a couple of questions on my own. Let's talk traffic first, so, and then we'll go to the others. The original Ocean Ranch development, I guess it did its own ADT studies, I imagine, and within that it had a number, and as development happened, those numbers obviously were taken, allocated for projects. So this project fits within that remaining allocation for Ocean Ranch and its development. So that's question one. And then the other part of that is, are the ADTs transferable? Those allotments, those allocations, are they transferable from one development to another if one development doesn't utilize all the ADTs, or how does that work?
I'm not sure if they're transferable or not. Staff, yeah, I would have to ask.
Maybe that's a question for staff.
Chairman, I'm not familiar with that answer. Rob, do you know at all?
Chair, there's a monitoring program for the ADT, and my understanding is that there have been agreements between property owners over the years on transferring those ADT rights. So there is the ability to transfer them and have a recorded agreement that had the monitoring program has been done through our transportation section, and they've kept documentation over the years, but haven't seen any recent projects that have needed it. But I believe it is an option if there's a project that has a shortage and wishes to most likely purchase those or through some form of agreement.
I guess I'm trying to put it in the context of how we will, if we approve this, have two very large warehouse operations, FedEx and Amazon, and the traffic that's generated by those two, I just want to understand, still fits within the original plan for the ADTs for Ocean Ranch development. Is that a yes?
Yes, that is correct. And these are the last two remaining lots. So most of the allocation has been exhausted, but there is still a balance on some other lots that haven't fully developed. I believe Coca-Cola still has room for expansion. There's Gilead as well. So and other properties have room for expansion need be. So they have the remaining allocation.
Okay. And then the other traffic question I had, which was spoken to by some of the speakers, is the hauling route for the vehicles from this facility. It sounded to me like maybe in your presentation that configuration or how that's going to work is still being worked out amongst the applicant and the city or whoever has a say in all of that, or did I not understand it correctly? Maybe that's your question to you, Mr. Child.
Yeah, so the hauling route will be a part of a condition of approval. And so that will need to be submitted to the city for the long haul truck approved prior to occupancy.
Okay, and the review process for that, is at a staff level? The reason I'm asking is because there seemed to be some uncertainty or at least different thinking in terms of where those hauling routes should go and the impacts to the neighborhoods. And so I just want to understand the review process for that stays within staff. Is there any more input from the neighborhoods, or how does that ultimately get finalized?
Sure, that would likely occur through staff review, through the city planner and the city traffic engineer on reviewing a draft plan and determining the best possible routes to where the vehicles need to go. So I think there's some dialogue between staff and the applicant on determining their needs and then providing recommendations on the best available haul routes based on that without impacting the surrounding neighborhoods.
Including the input from those neighborhoods in terms of what they prefer to see happen. Is that another piece of that?
I would, the applicant may have the ability to reach out as part of their plan. We can discuss that.
Okay.
But there wouldn't be any.
I guess I'm thinking that probably should be a part of it, because I heard at least one or two comments about a reservation about the hauling routes going within or near certain neighborhoods. So I just would tee that up as something to consider as that's being worked out.
Yeah, and the hauling routes wouldn't be the roads inside city approved.
Okay. So I heard two consistent comments that are not my questions, but from the public: lighting, noise, and then impacts to neighborhoods that are not St. Cloud, but other neighborhoods in the area. So if you want to tackle those, Mr. Child.
Sure. So
And
understand.
maybe you can bring the mic a bit closer to you. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Better?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, sure. So understanding, again, lighting is a big component of design and also a big component of frustration within the community and residents. It's why we as a group, Lpc architects, and put some thought into the design, and we have 260 trees on site. I think we're over the green space by 5%. Along the north frontage, on top of the retaining wall, we have 116 hedges, and on the northwest side, along the vans, we have 119 hedges that grow in height about 8 to 10 feet. There's 40 on the northwest side where the vans are. There's 40-ish trees, ranging in height from 40 to 50 feet once fully matured. So that will help alleviate or eliminate the sight of light poles. Outside of light leaving our site, we're going through the lumens calculations and ensuring that no light wash falls off of our property line per code. And so again, the building being behind a 17-foot retaining wall and depressed slightly, the light poles, I heard someone say that they could be up to 50 feet. They'd be 25 feet in height and be hidden behind retaining walls and hopefully mature trees.
Okay. And then noise was, I guess, a factor, at least with the FedEx facility. And you addressed noise, but if you would readdress it perhaps, and how are you going to tackle that?
Yeah, sure. So walking through noise and what we did and what we heard, and understanding that the residents are concerned about noise. So we heard that and we restudied it. And so we went back and looked at our baseline noise study, where we went down to the St. Cloud community and took noise studies during different times of the day and different days of the week to gain that baseline and understand what the ambient noise was. And then we looked at our site, not on a normal, typical day, but we analyzed our site on a peak time. So that's multiple line haul trucks on site at one time, which is not typical, all the vans operating at one time. We did calculate any potential whitewash from backup or potential beeping, and then input the 17-foot high retaining wall and all the landscaping and trees into that noise study, and took into the account the building layout, and found that our site is under ambient noise, or will generate under ambient noise at the St. Cloud community.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for either staff or the applicant?
Well, I have one question.
Go ahead.
So you said, someone said that the FedEx was, of course, very noisy or whatever. Do you know the comparison of what your noise level will be to what theirs currently is, or does anyone know, the staff or anyone?
I don't. We tried to look into that because I would assume that question would come up. We couldn't get it, but I know that they have close to 100 doctors, if not more. We have 15. So I don't know what that staff, do you know offhand?
I don't know the answer to the question you just asked, but if I could.
Yeah.
The complaints that we hear about FedEx is the backup beepers. And I thought you mentioned something that you're going to use an alternative to that. And I think that would be helpful for us to understand that.
Yeah, so we have Amazon on the phone. Can I ask them to respond to that question?
You have one of your team members on the phone, you said?
Yeah, Melissa Watkins.
Certainly. Can you identify that?
Melissa Watkins.
Okay.
Queued up. Commissioner Rosales, Healy with.
Yeah,
Haley with Intesa Communications Group and a partner with LPC West. You also asked about outreach and making sure that it was beyond the St. Cloud community. We did ensure that it was 1,500 feet, which included the Vista Capri community up above. It's actually across Mesa and then up above, and we took into account their vantage point, as Mr. Whitbread did allude to, is actually at a higher vantage point. So we did go up into that community to ensure that the landscaping and the trees would shield the project, the light, and the building as much as possible from their community as well. We also reached out to one of the speakers here tonight, and we did not hear any response on a couple of different occasions. So.
Great, thank you. Do you have the other team member ready? Okay.
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Did you hear the question, or you need that repeated?
No, I did hear the question, and I appreciate the time tonight to discuss this. We get this question a lot when it comes to our vans. There is obviously 174 vehicles that are going to be moving around in regards to our vans, getting the packages to and from the facilities. A key point with that is these vans remain docile from typically 9 p.m. to about 9 a.m., 10 a.m. the next morning. So that backup beeping sound of the vans does not occur during the middle of the night. Typically, the only noise that would be emitted would be coming from the line hauls that are coming and going. And the specific noise that's emitted from our vans, it's actually a very unique design, since we've had the ability to design these vehicles how we need them, not only inside and outside. It's more of a kind of a whooshing noise. Think of like a extenuated white noise sound. And you would probably already hear this as the vans are already operating in the Oceanside neighborhood. They're just coming from another facility much farther away. So our ability to locate these vans closer not only cuts down on the time that these vans are on the road, but actually allows for us to give more services to the community.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Childs or staff?
Yeah, I had the same question about the backup siren, the
Okay,
backup horn.
great.
So.
Commissioner Hayes? Okay. Thank you, sir. We still may have another question, but for the moment, I think we're good. Scott, I see Diane's hand raised. Is she ready?
Looks like it.
Ann, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, can you hear
go
me?
ahead.
No, my apologies. That doesn't work too well to try to do 2 Zoom meetings at once. Just a couple of comments. I did hear discussion about general plan compliance, but one of the new elements of our general plan is our climate action plan as part of the sustainability element. Certainly the EVs are an important component of that, but there are other elements of CAP compliance that were not discussed. I'm concerned with making sure the project is in full compliance with that. And secondly, as of July 1st, 2020, the CEQA threshold for traffic is no longer congestion. It's not level of service, it's vehicle miles traveled. And there again was no discussion of that, and it would appear that the timing of this project would be subject to that change in the CEQA threshold that occurred July 1st in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. What about our other 2 speakers before we go to those 2 questions?
Let's see. Peggy Walker, are you online? If you are, please unmute your mic. If not, let's go to Risa Breuer. Risa Breuer. We have Sherry Mack and Rose her hand, but she didn't sign up. One last person, Susie Coker.
Ms. Coker? Is she computer?
She's emailing me. Susie, feel free to unmute your mic.
And I see Sherry Mackin has her hand up. Is she we're allowing, did she submit a slip or we're still allowing?
She didn't submit a slip. Could it be city planners?
Yeah.
We would still allow anyone to speak who requests to speak at this time.
Let's
if
go
we
to
can
Ms.
make it work.
Yeah, let's go to Ms. Coker first if she's available.
I'm not seeing her on the list.
Okay.
Unless she's these two last phone numbers here, but. Sherry, I've asked you to unmute. Let's go with Sherry Mackin.
Yes, please.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my raised hand.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, I think there's something wrong with the system tonight. There are a couple people having a difficult time getting on, and Susie had emailed me and said, what's going on? I requested to speak. Do you know? I saw your name up there, and I just, email Scott Nightingale, and he'll be able to help you out with that. So I know she did want to make a statement, and I believe there are two other people as well. So not sure what's going on with technology, but that's technology for you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it is a challenge this evening. We've had challenges on other evenings as well. So let's run through those three speakers one more time, starting with Ms. Coker, and this will be our last run at it, and see if we can get them on.
Next speaker is Susie Coker. Give you a couple seconds here to unmute. I'm going to go to the next speakers. The next speaker will be Peggy Walker. And last speaker, Risa Breuer. If you could just unmute your mic. I'm not seeing these actual three individuals listed on the participant list. So.
Okay. And that concludes the speaker slips that we had received?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, then we'll close out the public hearing portion of the meeting. Unfortunately, we missed being able to get input from a few of the folks, but as Sherry Mackin said, that's the technology we're living with right now. So the last speaker, Ms. Nygard, addressed the cap, and then the CEQA change in July of last year that also had an inclusion for vehicle miles traveled as something that had to be analyzed. Staff, maybe that's a question for you. In this effort, were those things considered and analyzed or part of the record?
Mr. Chairman, I believe they did an addendum to the existing MND, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, and an addendum I believe does not require public comment. The trigger for VMT analysis is a CEQA document that was published for public review after July 1.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you identify yourself?
This is Susie Coker. I have been pushing the buttons like crazy. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with this Apple phone.
Okay, Susie, we've closed the public hearing, but let me check with staff. I think we can let you in since we have you on the phone. Yes, we can. So go ahead, Ms. Coker. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you getting me in late. I've been pushing these buttons like crazy. My concern is that an EIR is needed. The communities that will be affected were not notified, and I'm one of them. I'm off of Rancho del Oro, south of Oceanside Boulevard. We already have a massive amount of trucks on this road, and it's a truck-restricted road. Rancho del Oro, north of Mesa, is also truck-restricted, and they mentioned that as an alternative route to Oceanside Boulevard. Mesa's truck-restricted. That leaves Oceanside Boulevard and leaves Old Grove Road connecting to the 76er College. Those are neighborhoods. Those are all neighborhoods. Unless they do Oceanside Boulevard, you're going to have trucks up and down those roads like crazy. And I'm sorry, but the police do not enforce the truck restriction. It's a real battle over here. It's an ongoing issue. The amount of trucks, the amount of employees, the amount of lights, the amount of noise is not fair to the neighboring communities. They mentioned the wall, they mentioned the trees, but the neighborhood that they're not addressing is directly east of the parcel near Old Grove Road and where Ocean Ranch goes around, spins around and connects to Old Grove Road from Ocean Ranch. And they look directly at that double lot there. I really think an EIR is needed. We need to address the communities. All the communities need to be involved. And having a distribution center is not the best fit for Oceanside. We can do way better with better paying jobs, higher quality jobs. And I'm really against this. And I appreciate your time and I appreciate you getting me in after the fact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coker, for your comments. Okay, so City Planner, you were asking Rob about the cap and then the vehicle miles traveled element of this?
Yes, so the cap measures, the project did complete the cap checklist, and with the adoption of the new renewable energy or climate action ordinances, the project has been conditioned to comply with all of those provisions. So that includes the electric vehicle charging stations. 50% of the project has to be offset by renewable energy, likely solar installation, a transportation demand management program, and then the urban forestry ordinance. So those four measures have been incorporated as conditions of approval to comply with the climate action plan.
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, there was a little interruption there, but just to be clear, the CEQA document or process this time was an addendum to an existing MND. CEQA does not require public circulation for comment of an addendum. An addendum can be used in CEQA when there is no increase to an existing impact or no increase to a new impact. So that's the trigger, is a public review of a CEQA document. Since there's no public review, they weren't subject to the VMT.
Yeah, great, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so I'll throw it over to the commissioners for any additional questions for staff, for the applicant, or entertain a motion.
I can make a motion.
Yeah, certainly.
That motion is that we approve staff's recommendation on the addendum to the Ocean Ranch Master Development Plan and Master Tentative Track Map, final initial study environmental checklist and mitigated negative declaration adopted in conjunction with Ocean Ranch Corporate Center pursuant to section 15162 and 15164 of the California CEQA. And two, approve the development plan D2014, the CUP 20-23 and variance V21-3 by adopting Planning Commission Resolution 2021 P20 with findings and conditions of approval attached herein.
Thank you. We have a motion of approval. Second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? I don't see any. I will just add my last commentary. This type of facility was, I think, what was envisioned for Ocean Ranch. It was as it was developed, light industrial projects that would bring in jobs. It may not be perfect in terms of its impacts to the community, but the applicant has reached out to the community, made modifications to the project, is working on hauling routes that hopefully will have less or no impact to the community. So with that, I will support this project. So let's go to a vote. We'll do a call vote. Vice Chair Morrissey?
Aye.
Commissioner Custer?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
And I too am a Hayes. I too am a yes. City planner.
For the record, that's 5 in favor, 0, pardon me, 4 in favor, 0 against. The motion passes.
It's Monday and it's almost 9 o'clock, so we're getting punchy maybe. Thank you. Best of luck, applicant and staff on the remaining steps on this project, so good luck. Okay, we have 2 discussion items on the agenda tonight. The first is staff presentation by David Toastchak. Hopefully I've gotten that right. Principal engineer with the city to do a brief presentation on the general plan conformity finding for the CIP project.
Commission Chair, Commissioners, David Toshak, Principal Civil Engineer, Engineering Department, Development Services, or Development Services Engineering. Today before you is the recommendation to determine that the capital improvements program for fiscal year 21-22 is in conformance with the general plan and adopt the resolution that is attached to the staff report. Hopefully we can make this fairly easy for you this year. We have every year brought the capital improvement projects to you for your approvals and review. The program has been attached to the staff report. It's quite voluminous. But the programs that are funding the projects are 14 of the 15 that we had last year, so it's very similar in that. The available projects are on the order of about 180 projects. Of those, 134 of them are budgeted for this year. The other 46 projects are future projects. So of the 134 projects that we have, 125 of them are continuing projects. So these are projects you've seen before, and they're continuing either because of the duration or budget, whether we're in design, longer design, or longer construction. So these are, it should be very familiar to you in reviewing the budget book. The budget book, however, is quite different this year. So the staff report for tonight is pretty concise and refers a lot to the information that's available inside the budget book. I think you've only had about a week to review the budget book, so there's a lot of information in there. And there have been some changes, mostly in the dollar amounts. We went from about $177 million that we presented to council back on April 15th to about just over $190 million currently. But the number of projects hasn't changed. So the draft, the other things about the features of the budget book is there is a glossary now that kind of refers to the types of programs and what those programs fund. And then there's also the fact that we have we go for every project that we have to go to Planning Commission, or that goes to Coastal Commission, we take that in their jurisdiction. And then of course, every project we have goes through the secret process. Some of our federally funded projects also have to go through a NEPA process as well. So the construction of projects, they're in compliance with our grading ordinances and best management practices for water quality control. I'm going to go through the basically the slide presentation that was given at the workshop on April 14th that was presented by Brian Thomas, the city engineer, and Lindsay Leahy, the principal water engineer. So I think I'll probably focus on most of the new projects that I could try to introduce you to, or if you have any questions about those. But in general, a lot of these projects you've seen before. So again, the programs are the same, $177 million. You can see by the pie chart here that a lot of the work, about 125 million of it is in water and sewer and improvements along a lot of the city streets that we have. They're doing a lot of reclamation and replacements and upsizing facilities. So again, projects are mostly carry forwards, annual projects like our slurry seal overlay projects. We do have one maintenance project in there, which are street median improvements. That's basically for our public works department to work on a lot of the potholes and other immediate needs for the rough roads. But the overall program is in our pavement management program. We have the same developer impact fees. The 4 categories we have are thoroughfare signal fees, citywide drainage fees, parks fees, and public facilities fees. So here I want to kind of focus on some of the newer projects, again, because they're being introduced to you today. ADA self-evaluation, it's a program where we are reassessing our ADA compliance in our buildings in our programs. Those are Elcor's own site projects. College Boulevard Bridge Cantilever, we're looking at widening the pedestrian access on the existing structure. Brook Street Pool, decking and rehab project, Broadway Street parking, that's an area just alongside the railroad tracks in Broadway on the west side of the track. We're looking at increasing parking at that location. Joe Balderrama Park design for the restroom. We just finished up the park improvements last year, so we're coming back to that location to improve the restrooms there. And then we have some trail projects in Elksgate Park. That's another project that came up at council, and they're looking at to improve some of the services for the park goers. Other key projects is our code enforcement relocation. That's alongside the efforts to redesign and reconstruct Fire Station number 1 just across the street here at Civic Center. And then we're starting a project up with Fire Station number 8. Other projects, some street improvements, construction of Fire Station number 8 possibly in the near future, Low Malta Creek Basins. The basins have been, along with the detention basin at Low to Alma Creek, those projects are a part of the environmental impact report we had some years ago. This is basically the last basin at El Camino or RDO and a modification to the basin at El Camino Real to address some of the lower flows. And you see the basins were designed for 100-year flood events, so those are being redesigned. Harbor improvements, Melrose Bridge improvement project that's on the agenda for basically click a study and then signal. And then again, another signal at Seagate. So a lot of basically improvements to existing infrastructure is what we're presenting. Traffic signal at North River Road in Douglas, facade Oceanside Boulevard. Pier utility construction project, that's a project where we're replacing the utilities on the existing wooden portion of the pier. Buccaneer Park, we just started our project, our design efforts with that, and public outreach meetings we're having at the park. Bill Brown Park restroom, again, that's the construction. So we have design money, but we don't have the construction money yet. So we're looking for funding sources for that. And then John Landis Recreation Center will be doing a study on what we can do at that park location. Other projects, again, more work at Elcor Zone, and then pickleball courts. We do have phase 1 of the pickleball courts on the budget this year. That's at Melba Bishop Park. And then these other phases are just more improvements with pickleball courts citywide. Some bond information. We're going to have some leftover money from the bond that we took, and we're going to apply that toward a couple projects we're recommending. Funds go toward the fire station, and then our road repairs and possibly Brook Street Pool repairs. So pavement management, we're trying to spend our money. The approach we've taken is a preservation over restoration effort. You'll see the prices here, and it's pretty consistent over the years. There's about 30 cents a square foot to put down a slurry seal to basically prevent infiltration of water into the pavement sections. As you do more work, obviously it's more expensive. The overlay that we do is $1.75 a square foot. And then when we have to get in to start doing full depth reclamations, we're looking at almost $22 a square foot. And then even further, if we have to wait until a street falls apart completely, then we're looking at almost $31 a square foot to reconstruct. And that's basically replacing base and repairing subgrades and putting new pavement down. So we're looking at preventative measures over full reconstruction. That stretches our dollar. Right now our streets are at about a 56 PCI, 100 being the best is very hard to obtain. I think a city in good condition would be around a PCI about 80 to 85. That's a very new city with new streets, given that we were incorporated in 1888. A lot of our streets are in bad array. So we go back and basically evaluate it with our pavement analysis and come up with areas throughout the city. And we try to focus now on communities. So if we can go in and do one community, then we don't have to go back for 5 to 7 years with, if we go to reconstruction, then we're going back in 5 or 7 years with a slurry seal to keep and maintain those streets in those type of conditions. The transit projects are pretty much the same. Again, SB1 projects are the same, slurry seal projects, a lot of them are money going into our slurry seal and overlay program, storm drain projects. We're dealing with a lot of failing corrugated metal pipe. A lot of our pipes went in the 70s and the metal basically rusts out. So we have 2 programs. One, a lot of our efforts are being right now is addressing emergencies. When a storm drain fails, we have to go in there and replace it, but we're trying to get ahead of that and identify projects. We have identified projects this year. Unfortunately, we had some emergencies we had to address before we could move forward with the ones we identified. So that's an ongoing annual effort. Similar here, same capital improvements as previous years. Miscellaneous facilities, we have a fire training tower that I basically project manage. That's going to help our fire department. Basically, we provide a training tower prop that allows firemen to train in real life situations. New projects, again, the band cell study that's moving forward as to what we can do at that facility. Storm drain projects and district-wide drainage. We have a rather large project on the Cleveland, upsizing that system. But we are working with Coast Commission and actually NCTD, the railroad. We have to go into use agreements with the railroad for our utilities that cross and go underneath the road at that grade crossing, and then Coast Commission review and permitting. Measure X funds, all these programs were addressed and presented to their appropriate, basically, oversight committees. Measure X was looked at back on March 11th. We had our workshop again on April 14th. We went to the Arts Commission in basically, let me see here. We went to the Arts Commission, I believe it was early February. Yeah, February 1st, we went to the Arts Commission. And then the Water Utilities Commission was on April 20th. But the agencies and commissions the commissions we identified in the resolution were presented the budget book for this year. Again, similar projects, FRA is along with the quiet zone. That's a project that everybody up and down the corridor are actually awaiting. And you might have some questions about that. I'll be happy to answer after my presentation. Same thing with parks. We have identified a lot of parks. We actually have brought on staff to help us on parks projects. So we have additional help this year to get some of these projects off the ground and running. And grants are pretty much the same too. Douglas Highway Retrofit Project, Coast Highway Bridge Replacement. We have a raised median project going in that's grant funded. And then we have a nice Buccaneer Beach, the restroom facilities improvements at the first phase of the work and improvements downtown here at the beach just outside the Civic Street at the bottom of Mission. That project's got accelerated after a tough start with some utility issues. The JDOC replacement in the harbor. And then utility projects. This is, again, a large portion of the project, but similar projects to last year. Really nothing new, but just ongoing large projects, which are in many of our streets. Grant applications, funding. Again, this PowerPoint slide is available to you I could share it with you, or if it's available through the meeting minutes, you could review this and have any questions that you might want to ask me and after reviewing some more of it. But they have 20 miles of pipeline going through the reclaimed recycled water program, the pure water. And I'm speaking here for Lindsay at this point, so any questions you might have for the principal and water utilities, I could definitely get back with you and any comments that she might have on details. But again, these projects have been looked at. They are from last year's and just carried forward and moving through the design and construction process. So here's a list of future projects that, again, when we approve the budget and the council approves the budget, or we recommend approval of the budget, it is only for the 1 year, for 21, 22. And then when we identify either future projects or unfunded projects, they are projects that we would like to build. And then, of course, once we have the opportunity to get funding for them, we will add them to the budget and propose them as new projects. But, a lot of fire station work, a lot of work along Mission Avenue and Whitings, more parks projects, and basically general list, a lot of projects at a value of, I'll back up there, you're looking at almost $270 million worth of projects that we would like to bring forward with the appropriate funding. So again, with that, I'd recommend that you find the plan in conformity with the general plan, and that is given the fact that most of these projects, vast majority of the projects are carried forward from the previous year. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. Any questions?
Yes. So
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the sand refurbishment that's?
On that one particularly, no. I could get you information on it, but I don't know the details. That project's ran out of the Public Works Department. So I have a different manager, and I could, if any questions you might have, I could take them down and ask those questions specifically, but I don't have enough information on sand replacement. We just did, obviously, if you notice, we just had the dredging operation just finish up about last week. So that's the most information I have, but I can get more information for you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
I don't see any other questions. This is just a public item, public testimony. So I don't see anybody in the chambers. Anybody online request to address this item?
Commissioner Rosales, Chair. We have no speakers.
Okay. And you need a recommendation. Your recommendation is this gets sent to the city council for final approval. Do you need a motion, city planner?
I think it might be good to get a motion and a vote.
Okay. So the motion would read adopt PC resolution 2021 P17 recommending city council approval, if somebody wants to make that motion.
Well, I'll second that one you just made.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move this forward to the city council for their approval. Any discussion? Seeing none. Commissioner, we'll start to my left. Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Morrissey?
Yes.
Commissioner Custer?
Yes.
And I will too approve it. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a lot of information, but it's always.
We could spend here all night talking about all the projects.
Yeah, having just gone through the budget process for the city of San Diego, there's a lot involved. So that was a quick snapshot. Thank you.
Yeah, and the budget book, again, is very detailed this year. They went through a major overhaul in how it was presented and the information in that. So if you didn't have enough time to spend through it, there's a lot of information in the book this year that identifies the programs. And again, if you have any questions, you have my contact information, or you can get it easily through Scott Nightingale and things of that nature. So I'm available to answer anything you might have after.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll go to the next item, which is adoption of the Planning Commission 2022-2023 work plan. And Mr. Hunt is going to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation on this one, so we'll just work off of the attachment in your packet. Again, this is a request to recommend approval of your biannual work plan. Biannual, just to be very clear, means a work plan covering 2 years, and we break it down by fiscal years. And I'll explain that in a little bit. The first page of the staff report provides background, and very little has changed in that background since the last time we reviewed your work plan. The analysis on the second page, again, explains that it covers 2 fiscal years. Fiscal years run from July 1 through June 30th. So this work plan would be effective July 1 of this year through June 30th of 2023. There's specific projects that are noted, and those are on page 3 under item 12. Although it's always kind of a guesstimate of what projects are anticipated, both legislative and development, so we cannot be assured of those. Going over to the actual work plan, the first page is virtually untouched. I may have done a little wordsmithing here and there. And likewise, going over into the second page of the work plan, it's virtually untouched. The changes start on page 3, item 12. And the first one is a general plan update item, and it involves holding a hearing and/or hearings and making a recommendation regarding adoption of the general plan elements. These would include land use, circulation, community facilities, conservation, safety, etc. The second item under that is to make a recommendation regarding adoption of the new housing element. This is coming before this body in early June. The third one is, again, making a recommendation, holding a hearing and a recommendation on the Smart and Sustainable Corridors Plan, which intends to focus our growth within our 4 transit corridors. And then the last one is you had a workshop on this recently to make a recommendation on the South Moore Hills community. The second item is a local coastal plan update, which has been going on for a couple of years now, and we have hit some challenges with the Coastal Commission, but we're hopeful that within the next 2 fiscal years, we can bring that to the Planning Commission for a recommendation as well. The third one's a new item, low-cost accommodations. The city has an obligation to preserve 375 low-cost visitor accommodation units in our coastal zone, and we are working with the coastal staff to allow other low-cost accommodations that are outside the coastal zone to be included, and also perhaps short-term rentals. So we hope to bring that to you. That would be a zoning amendment and a local coastal plan amendment. Item D is streamlining zoning amendments. It's kind of a catch-all. There may be actually more than a hearing, and maybe several hearings based on individual aspects of the streamlining. But we have been directed to look for streamlining processes for commercial uses, conditional use permits, appeals, minor downtown projects, and other appropriate applications. Going over to the last page, we're looking at bringing forward density bonus provisions to update the city's provisions. So the state has recently adopted a new density bonus law, and we need to update our city code to reflect that. The remaining items are more development project as opposed to legislative. Item F is the Oceanside Transit Center, and CTD is looking at redeveloping that site into mixed use, along with some parking and conference space, and of course transit uses. Item G is the Ocean Camp, the lifestyle project out on the old drive-in site. Involves a surf park, commercial uses, a spa, hotel, and residential use. Item H is a project that's been kind of on hold for a while, but it's starting to get some legs more recently. This involves a zoning amendment of industrial zoned land. Generally, staff would be skeptical of this, but given the location and the challenging viability of industrial use, we may end up supporting it. I'm not sure at this point. Item I is the Jefferson Oceanside mixed-use project, some commercial near the Sprinter Station, and then some residential. This is at Crouch Street and Oceanside Boulevard. And finally, a project that came in recently is at 1602 South Coast Highway. This is a mixed-use project at Moore Street, Coast Highway, across from the project that has recently been completed. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We can certainly add projects if you would like to, or we can discuss them, but we eventually would like a recommendation approval to the, to the city council.
And adding projects to the list would be, what's that process and how long would that process be open?
You say it, and if staff doesn't have any problems with it, we'll put it on there.
Okay. Anything that commissioners tonight would like to see added?
Just to kind of clarify that, these are big projects. There's going to be a ton of projects coming your way. A single family.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Hunt? Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Looks like a good list. Lots going on, that's for sure. I think everybody's anticipating the general plan update for sure. Yes, we can. So if somebody would like to make a motion to adopt the work plan list, and a second?
Second.
No.
Oh.
Somebody make a motion. Go ahead and make the motion.
motion.
Yes, to adopt it.
It's getting too late.
Yes, I know.
To adopt the, what do I need to say? I don't have my paper.
A motion to adopt the work plan as proposed by staff.
Motion to adopt the plan, which plan? The
Item 8.
item 8 as recommended by staff.
I'll second that.
Okay.
You can add
So we
it
do
back.
have a motion and a second. No discussion, I see. Commissioner Hayes, is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, I will support it as well.
Yes.
And yes, we have 4 yeses, it looks like.
And just to clarify, it's to recommend approval. You don't adopt your work plan. Council has to.
Yes, recommend approval.
Okay. Recommend.
It is getting late. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. So with that, the sole remaining item is city planner and commissioner reports. I really don't have anything to add. I think after, the only thing I'll say is this is our second meeting of a blended Zoom in council, and other than a couple of technical issues tonight, which were not anything that staff did wrong, it's just, I kind of think that's where we are at the moment. Hopefully we'll get even better at this. So, but it's nice to get in the chambers again. I will say that. I don't have anything else to add. Vice Chair Morrissey?
I received a letter from one of the swimming coaches, and his name is Paul Ring, and he's basically has a proposal of how he sees opening up the new pool, and don't know where I should send that, city planner.
I suggest you send it to me, and I will forward it to
Perfect.
Jonathan
Okay.
Borrego.
And then question I had on the sand refurbish, what's going on with that? I saw that there was a meeting and then it was canceled, and there's a Steve Johnson. Is he the chair of that committee? And I just, I mean, the planning commission, I'm on it, but I don't know what's the next step.
Commissioner Morrissey, are you referring to the beachfront improvement?
Yes.
So the beachfront improvement project, there was a meeting that was scheduled, and then they canceled that, and they will schedule a meeting in the near future.
Okay.
So you can be assured that you'll be invited to that. As long as we're talking about that, at the last meeting, I described it incorrectly. I said it included the lifeguard station, and that's actually a separate project. Obviously, they're very close to each other. The beachfront improvement project, and it's really a feasibility study. That's what the project is to do a feasibility study. And
Okay.
that includes 2 buildings, the Junior Seau Community Center and the amphitheater, which is commonly called the band shell.
Okay.
So I want to stand corrected from our last meeting. And so it's those 2 items. And that is what the committee that you're on it will be focusing on, is just those 2 buildings, not the pier and the lifeguard station.
So as far as the sand back on the beaches, who's addressing that?
And that's a public works project. and
Okay.
We could get you a summary if you'd like that.
Yes.
And I'll email that to the entire commission.
And I'll email this to you tomorrow, Jeff.
Pardon me?
I said, and I'll email this letter from Paul Ring.
Oh, great.
Regarding the pool. to
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it, Tom?
That's it.
Commissioner Custer?
Nothing to report.
And Commissioner Hayes?
Just two quick things. One, I'm just wondering if, as part of the general plan update, are they also going to be doing a safety evacuation plan? I know we're supposed to have a really bad fire season, and being back in my neighborhood where we've been evacuated a couple times over the last decade. Just wondering what they're doing about that.
I believe so, but let me get some facts and some better information, and I'll respond.
Just one other thing, there was, the National Planning Association had their annual meeting recently, and I know commissioners, I've found out because I'm already a member, I don't get the discount. So if you are not a member of the American Planning Association, it's a great resource for lots of the latest and greatest of what's going on with either equity or climate change or anything planning that you want. And I think it's only like $140 a year for commissioners. So.
And they have regular meetings and then, okay, so.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
discounted for commissioners. So there's an annual meeting that they do. There's also chapter on a monthly basis. They'll do, in San Diego County, they have a chapter and they'll have events. So you can learn the latest and greatest of what's going on in our neighboring cities and in the county. Sandag is a regular participant in that. So just wanted to make you all aware of it if
Yeah.
you weren't.
Thank you. City Planner?
Well, first, let me echo Commissioner Hayes' comments about the APA. I would encourage all of you to join. To be candid, the city can't support the expenses with that, but hopefully, if you find it interesting, you can do it on your own. Just the city used to do that, but it got expensive, particularly during downturns. And then also it got to be, well, how they get to go, how come I can't go? And those kind of things where one committee is pointing at the other. And so anyways, so your upcoming agenda items on June 7th, you have the housing element update. I mentioned that in your work plan. You also have an emergency shelter zoning amendment, which will propose to allow emergency shelters by right if they're on city-owned properties. Right now, they would need a conditional use permit. And then there's an addition at 2115 South Tremont. On June 21, you're scheduled to review the circulation element amendment that would remove the Melrose extension. That's an extension from, I think it's Wahomie Drive or Santa Fe to Spur Road. It doesn't remove the northern part of the bridge. That would stay in. Council, going backwards, April 28th, they held a workshop on South Morro Hills, and I would say 3 out of the 4 members who were there were supportive of the planning staff's approach. There was some concerns about specific information and specific items, explain the transfer development process, infrastructure, et cetera, but no one said to start over or go back, so we'll continue forward with that process. As noted during your non-agenda items, there was an appeal of the CarMax approval, and staff worked with the appellant, and they were satisfied with our efforts to work with them, and so they withdrew that appeal. That was scheduled for Wednesday night, the 19th. And on June 2nd, your adult cannabis zoning amendment is scheduled for council review. On June 16th, they will review the emergency shelters, the 806 North Cleveland, and your Planning Commission work plan. And then on June 23rd, we have, it's June 17th, we have the housing element adoption scheduled. So hopefully they will get to that. We wanted to let you know that the North River Farms project, there was a court ruling on that said the referendum violated state law, and so the judge struck down the referendum. The referendum, once it passed it last November, reverted the zoning to agriculture by overturning the city council's adoption of the planned development zoning. Though the judge overthrew the referendum, the judge relied on a phrase in the state law that says no moratorium or similar restriction or limitation on housing can be implemented. There's a lot of people who felt that that doesn't really involve a referendum, but the judge felt it did. So as a result, the zoning now is on North River Farms is back to the planned development includes commercial, small portion of commercial, mostly residential, some agriculture and open space. So that's what it is. We would anticipate an appeal from one of the parties. I don't know if the city would appeal it or not, but there's other parties that are involved and they may appeal it and this may get overturned, but until it's overturned, that's what the zoning is right now. Finally, staff has held an interdepartmental team meeting and we're looking at outdoor business allowances. During COVID, we allowed a lot of businesses to operate outdoors, sometimes in parking lots, sometimes on right-of-way. And so we're looking at announcing a grace period after the anticipated lift of the tiers by the governor on June 15th. We anticipate giving maybe a 3-month grace period to come into compliance. If you don't have a permit, come in and get a permit. And then after 3 months, everyone who's permitted would have another 3 months perhaps to continue to operate, recoup some of the costs, get their economic feet back on the ground after COVID, et cetera. And during that 6-month review, we'll explore, no guarantees, but staff is going to explore perhaps allowing some of these outdoor uses to continue permanently, subject to review. There's some support for that, not just to give the businesses a boost after COVID, but because it provides revitalization, excitement, activity to our downtown and Coast Highway and other areas. So we'll see where that goes. And that's all I had, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for city planner? Don't see any. Okay. Thank you, folks. We are adjourned till June 7th.